Running from there. They had to be on the Teams meeting. If we get into the team. Yeah. Sorry. Should we just extend the screen? And office is activated here. It's not activated there, so she can select not position. To stay connected. Can you do something on the screen? You can just minimize and then.
How to show the slide before they get started?
Yes, and you will get it immediately. Yeah, this will come up. Keep the screen up so that you get it right here.
Okay, hello? Hello. Oh, wow. Sorry about that. Ooh. I'm also too tall for the microphone. But hey, folks, I think we've got enough forum to get started, and thank you so much for your patience. Very nice to see so many friends in the room. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning-ish with us. We really appreciate it. So today's event is about regional policy approaches to shipping decarbonization. Sorry, for those who don't know me, my name is Madeline Rose. I'm the Climate Director for Pacific Environment. So far at COP, for those who have been following, there has been a lot of focus on ship decarbonization solutions. We had the Great Shipping Challenge announced by the U.S. and Norway, which facilitated about 15 voluntary commitments to accelerate markets, accelerate fuels. We've heard there's been multiple side events about the future of fuels, getting excited, and lots of great hydrogen production announcements made. But we know that none of those solutions will come to scale if we do not have comprehensive policy frameworks in place globally to ultimately force the shipping industry off fossil fuels and make sure there's a level playing field for renewable and clean energy solutions to compete. So that is why we're here today, to really talk about what are the emerging policy frameworks, what are best practices, how can we leverage comprehensive policy to put the industry on a 1.5-degree pathway, and we're really excited about that. So to kick us off, we are so honored to have Congresswoman Nanette Barragán from California here. So Congresswoman Barragán was born and raised in the Harbor area of Los Angeles. She was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in November 2016, becoming the first Latina ever represented to represent California's 41st congressional district, which is the largest port complex in the northern hemisphere, the San Diego Port Complex. Congresswoman Barragán is the first co-sponsor of the Clean Shipping Act of 2022 in the U.S. Congress, which is the first ever legislation that attempts to put the shipping industry on a zero-emission pathway, leveraging the power of the U.S. government as the world's largest maritime importer to start to catalyze the zero-emission transition. So, Congresswoman Barragán, thank you so much for joining us, and let's kick it off.
Good afternoon, or just good morning. It's great to be with you here today. I'm Congresswoman Nanette Barragán. And I represent, as was mentioned, the Port of Los Angeles and South LA. I want to thank you, Madeline, for the introduction, and Pacific Environment for hosting this event, and for your work to decarbonize shipping. When I saw the title of today, I said, this is something I got to stop at and make sure to meet some of you. Decarbonize shipping and freight is a perfect event for being on the stage here at COP27, because it is something that has come up in conversation. Now, I'm here in Egypt as part of the House delegation led by Speaker Nancy Pelosi to reaffirm the U.S. Congress's commitment to the global fight against climate change and to engage on the broad range of solutions needed to address the climate crisis. So when we're in a room, I'm the person they turn to when it's time to talk about the ports or the shipping industry. And it's really quite funny because just the other day I was in a meeting with the president of Egypt, and Speaker Pelosi called on me and said, and now we have Congressmember Belge, she's going to talk about the ports and shipping. So she knows that is the thing that I'm passionate about, and making sure that we're continuing to work together. Now, one of the solutions that we need, that I think that we need to address the climate crisis, is the need for bold investments and robust regulation to reduce shipping emissions. Now, this is critical to fight the climate crisis and to reduce pollution in poor communities who are disproportionately affecting communities of color. My district in particular is a district that's almost 90% Latino African American, very working class. Guess what? It has higher pollution. So we get the benefit of the economic benefit of having the ports there, the import, the export, but we do have the pollution. And so this is one of the reasons that it's one of my signature issues. That's on energy and commerce in Congress. So everything on healthcare and everything on the environment is what I do. Now, one of the solutions, I think, is to reduce the shipping emissions, and it's critical to fight the climate crisis and to reduce pollution in poor communities, as I mentioned. Now, the Green Shipping Challenge announcement of COP27 by the U.S. and other countries to reduce shipping pollution shows support that is global, and that we need global action. And this is something that we've talked to the Special Envoy John Kerry about and others. Now, in the U.S., we can lead with investments and regulations to set pathways to get to zero emissions. So I am the co-lead of the Clean Shipping Act with Representative Lowenthal. This is a bill that would require the U.S. ships to use net zero emissions fuels by 2040 with interim targets. Now, our bill requires zero emissions for ships in ports at first by 2030. The U.S. can provide the funds to help achieve these targets. Now, there's a recent example of this commitment, and that is $3 billion of investments from my other bill, the Climate Smart Ports Act, to decarbonize ports, was included in the Inflation Reduction Act. And when you hear about the president and you hear about folks talking about going zero emissions at the ports, talking about the bill that I introduced that got folded into the RRA. And that's why I'm so hopeful about this bill, because I think there's opportunities in the conversation in there. Right, the IRA was the start, but guess what? It's not all. There's going to be continuing investment in making sure that we are going zero emissions and we're investing in every sector. So I believe that this will help the U.S. ports reduce emissions and fund shore power for ships. Now, California has led with regulations requiring zero emissions for ships at berth. Many ships now need to plug in and to use ports to use shore power at the Port of Los Angeles. So I am a partner, and consider me a partner. Please reach out to my office. You have my commitment to work with you. Support. We need to get continued support for investments in zero emissions ports and in shipping. We need to continue to also get support for the bill. And this is how Congress works. The more members of Congress that are on it, the more people that are talking about it, the more that it's written up, the more on edge you see about it, is what gets it moving and gets it across the finish line. So please work with, Pacific Environment, please work with our office to build support for Clean Shipping Act so that the U.S. can lead the world by requiring U.S. ships to be zero emissions by 2040. Now, we have a long way to go. This is something I hear from people like, oh, this is great, it's a start, but there's a long way to go. But we've got to start somewhere. And if we don't start now, it's going to be too late. We know that the planet is exceeding us. And so we've got to continue to do our part. So we have a long way to achieve our goal to reduce emissions from maritime shipping and at our seaports. Well, my hope is that COP27 will provide a boost to these efforts. So thank you for having me today. I look forward to working with you and all of our global partners, and certainly private industry that is doing their part and stepping up to make sure they're investing, in these efforts, because we need to decarbonize our shipping and our ports and create sustainable port communities. And I want to apologize that I can't stay because I'm a part of the delegation. I have to zoom off to rejoin our delegation here. But I'm very passionate about this, and so please do reach out and continue to work with us. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much, Congresswoman Barragan. We all will miss her as she goes. But it's a perfect tee-up to our official keynote of the event to continue our matriarchal maritime kickoff here. I'm so excited to welcome Julie Sakara. Julie Sakara currently serves as Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of International Affairs at the Department of Energy. I also just learned this morning that she's a former IMO negotiator. So all of us in the room know that she oscillates from the political to the very wonky if she was a former state IMO negotiator. Julie was most recently served as the Executive Director of the U.S. Climate Alliance, which is a bipartisan coalition of governors in the U.S. that work together on major issues. The governors of California, of Washington, of New York, again, in the U.S. are a very important lever to mobilize as first movers if we're going to win on national shipping policy. She has covered a range of issues when she served under the U.S. Special Envoy for Climate Change, leading U.S. engagement in strategic partnerships on the North American Leaders Summit, the Arctic Council, and the Brazilian Climate Innovation Lab. So we're so excited to have Julie build off of that first opening remarks to keynote sort of where the U.S. is going from here. So thank you so much, Julie.
Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. I'm so pleased to be here with you. And as she was saying, coming from the former IMO world, it's just nice to be in a space where what we're doing is just taking action. We're not negotiating the words or the text. We're actually just like getting stuff done. So I'm also here in a capacity not just representing the U.S. Department of Energy, but also as the new chair for Mission Innovation, which is one of the preeminent global platforms on collaboration to really drive innovation in these critical technologies. And of course, hydrogen and shipping in particular are two of the big priorities for mission innovation, but also for us as the U.S. government. And so in order for mission innovation to be driving some of these technology innovations, we stood up a series of research missions that are designed to actually tackle some of the biggest technology challenges of our time. The United States is actually leading the shipping mission with our colleagues from Denmark and also from Norway, so really thank them for their leadership and for their collaboration in that regard. The Congresswoman spoke a lot about what the U.S. Congress in particular is doing. I think for myself, I'd love to actually focus not even on just what the Department of Energy is doing, but really how are we collaborating with you all, because at the end of the day, that's what we need to do in order to actually fix the complexities of the shipping sector. So we've been co-leading this collaborative effort to decarbonize ocean-going ships as well as maritime transport. We all know that commercial shipping is really the backbone of global commerce, carrying close to 90% of all world trade. That's huge. And we have to address the crucial link in the supply chain that so many businesses rely on if we want to actually meet our 2050 goals for decarbonizing our global energy system. And we understand here at the department that the importance of the industry and its effect on so many other U.S. businesses is why we are really excited to be able to co-lead the shipping mission at Mission Innovation and actually just help the maritime industry meet and reach its own decarbonization goals. I also want to recognize that there is a delicate relationship between ports and neighboring communities, and many of those have been overburdened, frankly, by a lot of the pollution that comes to ports, a lot of the traffic, there's a lot of impact. And so part of the work that we're doing, both domestically and in our collaboration with partners, is making sure that as we are transitioning to a net zero economy, we want to ensure that that transition is just, that we're repairing past damages, and that we're creating opportunities for BIPOC communities in particular. The U.S. has a very strong maritime heritage. We have tens of thousands of commercial vessels, some of the largest ports in the world, world-class shipyards, and 7 maritime academies. We also have a maritime workforce that numbers into the hundreds of thousands. So the maritime culture and industry is really built into U.S. history, into our economy. Moreover, maritime transportation is a critical part of our overall transportation system, and DOE has an especially important role in innovating the clean technologies and fuels that are going to help us to decarbonize the sector. In addition to our maritime expertise, the U.S. is also a leader in clean energy technology. The Department of Energy every year invests billions of dollars in research, development, and demonstration. Our national laboratories and our academic institutions are some of the best in class all around the world. And so every day we are mobilizing all of these assets in order to help drive down the cost of these mainstream technologies to make sure that they can be accessible and affordable to everyone. IRA in particular has given the department $100 billion for us to really be doing even more in this space, and so I'm looking forward to collaborating with you all, with our partners in Congress, to actually make some meaningful progress in shipping. We all know that the maritime sector is considered a hard-to-abate sector, and that means that it needs a lot of different kinds of fuel options, technology, different tools. For us to be able to do that, it means that we need to be able to actually collaborate with each other. We're actively working on things like biofuels, hydrogen, energy efficiency, vessel electrification, and even looking at nuclear microreactors as some of the solution sets. Our hydrogen and fuel cell technologies office in particular is supporting demonstration of a hydrogen bunker barge in California, which is going to provide hydrogen fuel to the first hydrogen fuel cell ferry in the United States. So that's the kind of innovation that we're doing. We're also primed to be a world leader in maritime decarbonization. Thanks to Bill and IRA, as I mentioned, the historic levels of funding that we'll be receiving are going to make it possible for climate technologies to be supporting ports and vessels. Some of the sectors you'll see growing in coming years will include things like offshore wind, and they actually provide an important forcing function for ports in particular, and just help us create an opportunity for decarbonizing our grid and getting vessels plugged in. I'm almost done. Just going back again to the complexities of the sector, we in the United States, with DOE, we are collaborating not only with our international partners, but also across sectors, which means that within our own government, we just recently put an MOU in place with the Environmental Protection Agency, Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Transportation, as a way to actually be collaborating in all the different elements in the maritime industry, because we know that we can't just tackle the technology piece of it. There's regulatory issues, there's zoning issues, and so we're working across all these agencies to figure out how we actually solve this problem at home. And then we're also connecting, because we know that the shipping industry in particular is really connecting all of our economies across the planet. Collaboration with our international partners is going to be essential for us to solve the problem. We're thrilled to be working with public and private sectors from all over the world. As I mentioned, our colleagues Denmark and Norway, but also just to recognize the Global Maritime Forum, Maersk McKinney Moses Center for Zero Carbon Shipping, so both of those institutions are partners with us as well. To achieve the goals of the shipping mission is not going to be easy, but it's also not impossible. It's just going to require us to be bold and to be aggressive in a way that we haven't been able to do in the past. Our goal is to reach a tipping point within the global maritime industry by 2030, where ocean-going vessels using fuels such as green methanol, green ammonia, green hydrogen, and biofuels is going to make up at least 5% of the global fleet fuel consumption. So those are the goals that we're reaching towards. And in September at the Global Clean Energy Action Forum, we announced a series of sprints for us to make as much progress as quickly as possible towards that goal. These sprints are projects that are going to focus on several topics such as life cycle analysis of marine fuels, port readiness for alternative fuels, which are going to gauge and index the preparedness of ports and terminals to actually handle fuels, and a pre-feasibility assessment of a green corridor between Korea and the United States that is part of the Green Shipping Challenge that we announced on November 7th. We've also created a Green Corridor online hub, which is a portal that provides information, resources, tools on the Green Shipping Corridor formation. And the website was live on November 7th. It is going to be launched formally on November 16th in case you'd like to take a look at that information. Suffice it to say, there is a ton of work that we need to do to actually decarbonize this sector that is so critically important for us meeting our domestic but also our international goals. We're not going to do that alone as DOE. We're going to have to work with our sister agencies. We want to work with our partner countries, with industry, and some of the fine institutions that are in this room that are really doing the cutting-edge research and innovation and investment to get this sector off the ground. So I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing, and to look to us as partners in this effort.
Thank you so much, Julie. Truly, I think once you find someone that's also sat through IMO, like the bond never breaks, right? So thank you so much, and we're so excited for all of this escalated U.S. leadership in the last couple of days in particular, really meaningful. Okay, so our third and final opening session is going to break the matriarchy, unfortunately. Over to you, Jacob. So Jacob Armstrong is joining us virtually from Brussels. Jacob Armstrong is the Sustainable Shipping Officer for Brussels-based NGO Transport and Environment. He manages transport and environment advocacy work on shipping and the emissions trading scheme, the ETS, the monitoring, reporting, and verification mechanism, the MRV, and in the shipping related to the UNFCCC. So basically all the things we care about in this room. And Jacob is going to be giving sort of an overview of what current shipping regulations are in play in the European Union, many of which we're trying to bring to the U.S., to bring to East Asia. So huge kudos to Transport Environment for their leadership. And Jacob, over to you.
Perfect. Just to check, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We're going to turn up the volume a bit. One second. Keep going.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks very much for having me. Good to see. I can only see Madeline now, but good to see Madeline. Good to see everyone in the room. I will be speaking. I've got a presentation, so hopefully we can show that in a second. Almost there.
So I'll take 1 second. We're trying to get your audio out. We can't hear you, but it's too quiet. So can you just try to speak loudly, like kind of yell in your apartment?
Yeah, that's fine. I can shout. Can you hear me okay now? No? You still can't hear me okay?
What?
I'll just keep talking. You can tell me when you can hear me okay.
Okay, sorry. The audio folks are saying wait 1 minute.
Okay.
So while we wait 1 minute, why don't you introduce yourself to your neighbor if you haven't done that yet? I know Dan Rutherford at IPCC is already talking methane split. So go there. Go find Dan if you want to talk methane split and engines. Yeah, in 1 minute. You look great that way, Jacob. Charlie. Okay, let's have a go. And if folks really can't hear, maybe get us closer to the project. Yeah.
Okay, so just to check, this is more or less okay? You can hear me? No, you can't hear me. You can't hear me at all.
The highest it can be. On the highest it can be. It's on the highest it can be.
Like, we can put this in front of, is it coming out of the screen?
I can tell you we can do something that might work. Can you tell him to speak?
Yes, I can speak. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
There we go. Yep. Go for it.
Perfect. All right, great, guys. Thank you for the patience, and thank you everyone, to the organisers and to the tech team for dealing with this. So yeah, to go on quickly, so I'm J.Guteland from Transport Environment. We're a clean transport campaign group working out of Brussels. And I'm here just to talk a little bit about the EU shipping laws and then mention the relevance that this could have for global shipping decarbonisation. So if we go to the next slide. If we touch on the next slide. Perfect. And if we go to the third point, the second point, sorry. So what I'll be talking today is about the EU shipping package, the Fit for 55 bunch of climate policies aiming to cut emissions by 55%. And I'll mention in detail a couple of those policies. So the EU emissions trading system, and as well this fuel regulation, Fuel EU Maritime. And then again, I'll reflect on regional policy and what impacts it can have for global decarbonisation. So to jump in first to the next slide, which will be Fit for 55. And if we go one more slide further, please. So just to reflect on what is the path to zero for shipping. So how do we get to zero carbon shipping? Well, very broadly, there's three things that we can do. So if you click on the next point, the first thing is energy efficiency. So if you click on the next text a couple of times, perfect. First thing is energy efficiency, and that's very simply doing the same amount of transport work, but using less fuel or using less energy. That's actually quite simple to do in shipping. There's a whole range of things you can do, from painting your ship a different colour to using heat a little bit more, and even just to going slower. So shipping is blessed. There is a lot you can do with energy efficiency, and there can be with regulated support as well. Then the second part is port electrification. We've heard a little bit about this. It's hugely important for those communities around the ports, and it's responsible for about 5 to 10% of global shipping emissions. So quite simple to do and very important. Then lastly, we are going to need some kind of energy carrier for shipping, so we will have to move away from the fossil fuels we use now to the clean, scalable, sustainable e-fuels of the future. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see what the European Union is trying to do to get there. And broadly, there's four things. The first thing is trying to ensure clean energy demand with the Fuel EU Maritime. Second thing is to try and make fossil fuels a little bit more expensive with the carbon market, and then financing the transition as well. Third thing is we've got this Renewable Energy Directive, which makes sure fuel producers are providing clean fuels. And then lastly, We have the mandates on ports, so what we call the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation, which is the next one, to basically make sure clean fuels are available in ports. So before going into detail on a couple of those things, if we go to the next slide, we will see one of the really important parts of the EU. So I think this is really worth highlighting, is this scope. Which emissions is the EU regulating? Well, it's really important to note the EU is going to regulate its share of international shipping emissions. And it's doing it on a voyage basis. And if you just click once to see the text, we'll see exactly how it's doing, because it's going to regulate 50% of emissions from incoming and outgoing voyages. So if you just click, there's a little bit of text there. Perfect. And this is important in the COP context, because it's a vindication of the EU's responsibility, state responsibility for these emissions. And this is important because up until now we haven't had that, and it hasn't been a little bit perverse because international emissions haven't been controlled by anyone, essentially, by any state official. And there's a good metaphor for this, which is if you, as a state or as an individual, if you order something online, you're going to pay for the whole transport costs. You're not just going to pay for the transport costs from when the delivery gets to your street. It's all part of your economy. Shipping is part of your economy. So it's good that the EU has recognised this. And again, it's part of the Paris Agreement where all states have committed to economy-wide emissions reduction. And of course, shipping is part of the economy, so shipping must be regulated by states and by the UNFCCC. So the geographical scope is important there. So if we now go into detail on the next slide into a couple of these regulations. So first of all, the emissions trading scheme. Just to quickly mention this, if we go to the next slide, we will see what it's all about. It's all about the polluter pays principle. So if you click twice, we'll see two bits of text. One is that essentially what the emissions trading does is make sure shipping polluters are responsible for their emissions. And again, it's supposed to make shipping emissions slightly more expensive, fossil fuels more expensive. Earlier this year, the price of carbon in the emissions trading scheme rose to €98 per tonne, so quite expensive. But if we go to the next slide, we will see that carbon pricing is not a silver bullet. And the very simple reason is that fossil fuels are very, very cheap and clean fuels are more expensive. So carbon pricing is not going to do it. It's not going to do it in the most efficient way. Hence, we need a basket of measures. You need other targeted support. And then if we go to the next slide, we'll see that the ETS is quite important in terms of revenues. So the ETS will raise revenues, which will be important to subsidising nascent technologies and ensuring an equitable transition, so some redistribution of those revenues. And we analysed what would happen if the EU used a subsidy scheme called Contracts for Difference, and it could have a huge impact if the EU uses its shipping ETS revenues for that. So going into the second instrument, the second legislation, which is the Fuel EU Maritime, in the next slide and then the slide after. So Fuel EU Maritime is a little bit more complicated to explain, so I'll try my very best. Go to the next slide and we click a few times. Essentially, Fuel EU Maritime is about average greenhouse gas intensity reductions. Okay, so average greenhouse gas intensity. So important to note, this is not absolute emissions reduction. And if you just click once, we will see something on the graph, which basically says that how this works is that the EU has to just click once more. We'll see baseline as a text coming up. So just if we just click once more, please. Perfect. So what the EU has done is it's looked at the average fuel mix in 2020, and it said, okay, if we take a unit of fuel, burning that will get kind of X amount of 91.8 grams of greenhouse gas of CO2 coming off. That's what's happening now. And the EU has mandated shipping companies that by targets in the future, by time in the future, with that same unit of fuel, burning it will has to have less greenhouse gases coming out of it. So it's about averages and getting cleaner fuels over time. But again, important to note, we're not talking about absolute emissions. So what this means is that a shipping company in 2030 might use slightly better fuels, so its average mix will be better, but it might use a lot more of those fuels. So in fact, its absolute emissions will go up. which is again why it's an interesting instrument, but with lots of other regulation and incentives needed. So if we go to the next slide, there's just one other, and the other part of this, if we click twice, is that EU institutions have backed targeted support for e-fuels. So the recognition here is that we know e-fuels are the future, so we have to give them dedicated support through, for example, credits within the legislation, but also mandates, making shipping companies use them. And if we click on the last slide, just the last thing about Fit for 55, is it affordable? Can it be affordable? Well, now we have the regulatory package in front of us. We can analyse it to find actually even the most ambitious version of Fit for 55 of the EU's shipping policies really is not going to cost the end consumer so much. And again, this is one of the other shipping's blessings, is that it has such amazing economies of scale that you can pass on the cost, that you can decarbonise without cost to the consumer. So now if we go to the next slide, we'll ask this question. This is regional policy, it's great for Europe, but what is the relevance to the rest of the world? Now to answer this question, what we did is we basically looked at the EU's allocation of emissions and looked at what would happen if we allocated it for the whole world. So if we click on the next slide, we'll see what share of shipping emissions is the whole world has. And what we see is that it's very fractured. Okay, no one country is responsible for a majority of shipping emissions. Again, China, EU, United States, it's a lot of emissions, it's really significant and important to reduce, but it's not a majority. So on first thought, this could show mistakenly that only a global regulation is going to get us there. But this doesn't tell us the full picture. Because of course, global shipping, there's a limited amount of ships, and in a year they will go to just a limited amount of placing, especially the real centres of business. So if we look at the next slide and the next graphic, what we'll see is where does the global shipping fleet go in a year? And what we found is actually they go to a very, very small amount of places. So the point here is that China, US, EU, if together they put in a zero-emission mandate, those countries could decarbonise 84% of global shipping. Even just China and EU, 80% of global shipping visits those two places. So strong zero-emission mandates or mandates on clean fuels or mandates on clean technology will have a huge impact on decarbonisation of global shipping. Even just the EU is 42%. So it just shows how important and how powerful regional policy can be. So to move on to the next slide, I will conclude with 4 points. First thing, very simply, Fit for 55, very good start. Obviously, room to improve, but a model, or some ideas that other states can and should follow. The second point one there is geographical scope is really, really important. Should be replicated by other countries. And again, the context of the Paris Agreement is important there. Third thing is that regional policy has huge global results. So developed countries, places like the US, but not only, places like other global north countries, and China that has an ETS and thought about including shipping in its ETS, must legislate for zero-emission shipping, and that starts with monitoring emissions. And then they can do what they like, whether it's fuel standards, energy efficiency, speed limits, it's all good stuff. And the final thing I think to make in the context of COP is that this is really the model of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is about bottom-up state action, state responsibility, and it's the only way to ensure an ambitious and equitable transition. So I hope our analysis has shown that we always knew clean shipping was technically possible, but I think now we've seen that it is also a lot closer than we think. So next slide. Thank you very much. Have a great panel. Happy to field any questions, and good to see you all.
Thank you so much, Jacob, and I'd like to give your news. Thank you so much for joining virtually. With that, we're going to transition to sort of the second part of our event today, which is our panel. We're going to hear from a very distinguished panel of folks who live and breathe the actual work of putting these policies into real life. So panelists, please come up, and I'm inviting A.Browne on our team to facilitate the panel.
that you are going to what you do.
Thank you all for all of our people and things that you are seated. I'm A.Browne. I'm the Funding Campaign Manager at Maritime, and I'm very excited to be joined by C.Wolff here for a few conversations on how people policy support shaping decarbonization. Just a note to all the panelists, you have to click your icon and on the silver button in the front when you're speaking. So quickly, I'll just introduce the panelists and off into this section. So first, we have both J.Guteland, the CEO of the Maritime Center for Zero Carbon Shipping, just made when I introduced you to Gov't. We have Mr. Tom Hudson, the Chief Commercial Officer at Envir. Certified Director for Head of Unit in Climate in Economy Ministry of Germany. We have C.Wolff, he's the CEO of the Maritime Center. We have a wonderful addition of Dr. Z.Chiguvare, he's the project coordinator at the Namibia Green Hydrogen Research Institute at the University of Namibia, supporting the research development and advancement of Namibia green hydrogen. So thank you, Doctor, for joining us the last minute for our panel. So happy to have you here. Obviously, green hydrogen is a hot topic in the Pacific, so happy to have a expert on hydrogen here with us today. So with that, I just wanted to thank our co-attendance organizers, Transport and Environment, and of course, Green Center for organizing this event with us. So much happening and talk here, and thank you all for being here today. So just to get us started, just some opening remarks from everyone. Let's go down the line, starting with Tom here. How has regional policy helped to achieve decarbonization goals, or here the path of decarbonization in shipping, and for Christoph in freight forwarding? So over to you, Tom, to get us started.
Yes, good morning from my side. Well, I think it's a huge challenge to bring all of us together as a team. We have taken important steps in the recent 2-3 years where we went from slide to impact action on the field. And regional cooperation, we had a we joined, it was said already this morning, the Global Maritime Forum. We joined the Getting to Zero emission link. We joined in September 2019. And of course, we signed also that to go for 5% emission by 2030. Why did we do? Because if we want to take up this challenge, I think 85% of the investments have to be done on the onshore side. And that's of course where ports come in the picture. And we do join that forum because we think that we have to learn from each other. We have to cross value chain. That's extremely important. But also the first point, we want to share also our knowledge, because if you want to understand what we do at Port of Distribution in minutes, we do facilitate 51,000 on the yearly base in and out of port. We are the second biggest chemical cluster in the world. And of course, we are the top 5 blueprint facility in the world. So that is why for us it's very important to be all together, to share our knowledge. That's what we do in other ports around the world, developing roadmaps, to make it practical, step by step, so to be confident we can get there. And cooperation and legislation help.
Thank you so much. Over to you, make sure you speak directly into the mic, just so everyone can hear you all the way in the back. You just click the mic on at the bottom.
Hello? Regional developments are extremely important to this transition, although, of course, we're aiming for global transition, global impact. So the National Universal Center for Zero Carbon Shipping is working on a horizon approach, if you will, where one is, of course, to ensure that we get sustainable, just electric replicable, scalable solutions by the end of the decade. That's one. And that takes, of course, a lot of policy and regulation, as we just heard this morning. But then also realizing that the journey to that global system goes over regional, national, local initiatives. And so actually for us right now, we put a lot of emphasis on the smaller initiatives because those smaller initiatives are going to be instrumental in demonstrating to the world how this can be done, as we just heard from Transport and Environment in Europe. They are going to be instrumental in creating confidence that zero carbon shipping is possible and that we can actually drive zero carbon shipping on just and equitable principles so that the countries that are involved in providing the energy and the infrastructure will experience also just principles being applied to local communities, etc. So it's, for us, it's extremely important that we focus and we keep in mind the big picture, the global impact, but at the same time get going between countries and local governments and between the companies that are also willing to lead in and invest in this transition. And the concrete initiative that we are working the most on at the moment is what we call the Green Corridors, where countries and companies come together to actually get started on driving zero carbon shipping with everything it takes from energy production, port infrastructure developments, building and running ships on zero carbon fuel, and also involving cargo owners that are willing to pay the green premium. And that, we believe, is now gaining enormous momentum, and it will really show the way forward. So I think that's why really the regional developments, both on the public and the private side, are so extremely important to get the global transition.
Thank you so much, Gov't. Sir, you've been very involved in the EU's approach on the ETS and moderating shipping in the European Union. Can you speak a bit about the policy work that's happening in the EU right now, building on the presentation that J.Guteland just gave us, and how you see EU serving as a model for regional policy approach to shipping decarbonization in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, I would say. Can you hear me? Okay. Thanks for inviting me. I'm pleased to be here. It's clear that shipping needs to make a significant and robust and meaningful contribution to the overall climate goal and Paris Agreement. And for us in the EU, it's also obviously that the international level is very important here. The IMO work is going on. It's not going on very fast, as many states are involved. But of course, we support the development of strong goals in the IMO and also of strong instruments. And nonetheless, in the EU, we feel that we needed to set an example, to make a start. Therefore, regulation of shipping emissions features probably in the Fit for 55 package that we are now about to negotiate in the final phase, hopefully, under the Czech presidency, under comitology, which is a procedure where the European Parliament, Commission, and the Member States and the Council have to find consensus on the whole package. So we hope that this Fit for 55 package, especially also the Maritime parts of it, will inspire others and pave the way for broader action, and especially also in IMO. There are several parts of the Fit for 55 package on shipping, and J.Guteland gave an excellent overview. I don't have to repeat this. I want to focus a bit among building mandates, energy taxes, and emission saving. I want to focus a bit on emissions. Also, Jacob said a lot of that, but maybe just to repeat some key points in the beginning. In the EU, already from now, since some years, ships over 5,000 gigatons gross tonnage are already required to monitor, verify, and report their emissions. In the future, they will also be integrated in the European emission trading system, which is already existing and reformed, and they will have to surrender allowances for the monitored and reported emissions. That will be the new thing. There will be, as Jacob mentioned, we will do this for 100% of the shipping activities in the European economic area, which is a bit broader than the EU, and we will do it for 50% of all the routes leading from European harbors to other international harbors and leading back to European harbors. 50% for international. So we plan to do this a bit smoothly. We will have phased in on the obligation to surrender allowances. But so the concept that should not come as a shock for the industry. They should be able to prepare. But this is still under discussion. The European Parliament thinks this should be taken away, and there should be an obligation to surrender allowances from the beginning on. So this is still under discussion. What is clear is that the maritime sector, as I mentioned, will be fully integrated in the existing emission trading system, which now, as it stands now, covers energy and industry emissions. So the sector will be added to that. We will adjust the cap, adding the 79 million tons of the shipping sector under the details, as I mentioned, the routes that are in, we will add this to the cap, and then they all fall under one unique same cap. They will have to trade, or they can trade their allowances in the same market as the energy industry, and also, of course, they are all under the same compliance with rules which are so well introduced in our emissions trading system. And it's clear that this cap, we should know the cap itself is also under discussion. We have brought before details, so we will decrease our cap dramatically to reach our 2030 goals. So we are talking about doubling the linear reduction factor, which is leading down until 2030. So this will be a very tight cap. There will be scarcity of allowances. Okay, I think with that, maybe to be asked to remarks, if you allow us, there are two important advantages of including the shipping sector in ETS, which has to do with the general advantages of ETS. The emissions trading system, such as the EU system, which is well introduced, and the robust compliance, it's clear that this system, if the sector is under, it guarantees that the sector under the ETS meets the goals. So we are sure that by these means we meet our emissions reduction target. The second is the pricing curve, which is derived from ETS, is driving decarbonization. It gives an incentive to innovate. It gives clear routes to invest in the cleanest possible technology. At the same time, and this was mentioned by others, we are also aware that the pricing is not the only one. Many mentioned here there will be competition measures, tailoring measures to address barriers in the transport, but this is part of another part of the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Dr.
the targeting. Obviously, your work focuses mostly on hydrogen. Can you tell us a little bit, policy development in the space really requires a technical consideration of the life cycle emissions, the carbon intensity of these fuels, and as we look at developing the policies for shipping and reducing emissions in the sector, how can policymakers incorporate the work of research institutes like yours in the development of these policies to make sure that we're addressing these regulations very holistically and scientifically?
Thank you very much. I think this topic is very important for this industry because it allows us to regulate hydrogen. Because policy guides very well as we start on this journey. One thing that we need to understand is we don't have at the moment for hydrogen, we don't have policy. And especially in Africa, we don't have policy that guide how do we go about hydrogen. So, for example, electrification of hydrogen is one of the key factors that allows us to create, for example, the market. We want to certify hydrogen as one of the get carbon credit. So, from the policy perspective, so we want to make incentivize the trading of hydrogen so that we can trade carbon credit and propose to fossil fuel, then we'll be able to get carbon credit from the fossil fuel. So I think from the recent point of view, so we want the issue of carbon credit to be enhanced from the research perspective. So it's one of the things that has not been really looked at. I know there are a lot of research that have been taken in Europe and a lot of formulas that have been worked on how to look at various carbon credits that can be looked at. But I think it still remains needed, which is the best method that we look at from the policy point of view for this naked field. But I think the polluter should be the one that should be looked at and should be really maybe put companies that are polluting, companies that are really emitting, and companies that should come to the forefront and see how they can contribute to this industry. I think that's my point.
Thank you so much. Can you wrap us up for opening remarks, Christoph? From the Smart Freight Center and your work for FreightWide, how do you see regional policy contributing the development of policy in other freight sectors, contributing to what we can do in shipping to accelerate the transition to zero emissions?
Thanks for actually, first I want to start with saying it's great to collaborate on this venue together with the friends from the transport environment as well as the city environment. And I also think Alice is great that you are here, otherwise that would qualify as a perfect manner. On the ICAO panel the other day, unfortunately in freight, where Smart Freight Center is active, this is still a little bit the case. Needs to change. So the Smart Freight Center, I would like to come to explain the angle they're coming in. So the Smart Freight Center has a very unique role in the ecosystem of the global goods movement. So we have designed over time the so-called SELECT framework for emissions accounting in freight sectors across all modes end to end. We're currently in the process to convert that to the ISO standard. And for that reason, basically all global shippers, or most of global shippers and logistics service providers and carriers are working with us basically to get their supply chains certified. So this is actually our unique role. Obviously, within that, those value chain, ports play a very important node. very important role. And they're also, job and employment centers for the community. So going back to the very first statement, there's a specific caretaker role for the community for people. I like that very much. And the fact actually that ships as well as the trucks that go into the port that to bring cargo to the ships or take it from the ships, actually the fact that they don't use clean fuels and clean propulsion, they create significant air pollution in those areas, and that's obviously not very good. So ports connect the land and sea side, and therefore they're in a way providing infrastructure, the energy infrastructure as well as the transport infrastructure, and so they are basically an emission center in their own right, but they could also have a significant impact both the sea side and land side to decarbonize. So I think now smart freighting is a place where shippers and logistics service providers collaborate to reduce emissions. So I couldn't agree more with everything that was said. I think policy is important, and it's great to have significant progress on both sides of the Atlantic. And having worked a lot with the IMO over the past, so it's important to get to a level playing field. And actually, we support very much and work with COSAC actually to aggregate purchase of shipping fuels with the Global Maritime Forum on the green corridors. And some years ago, that goes back to my in Namibia, I was part of some work with EDF, Environmental Defense Fund Shipping for Solar, which basically said that there could be a lot of value creation in around ports, around major shipping lanes in emerging markets where the lowest cost of fuel production exists, and that definitely includes Namibia for green methanol or green ammonia. We did create this smart freight, so we operate the so-called in smart freight, and then the so-called Clean Carbon Working Group that has more than 75 members, and it's a platform for sharing emissions data on a per shipment level, and it helps shippers to choose the lowest emission ships. So that is actually an important platform in the whole ecosystem. And we created lately the so-called Sustainable Freight Maritime Line. So this is all the shippers, the Amazon, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, etc., working together to push the electrification of corridors on the road side, as well as purchasing sustainable aviation fuel on air freight, and purchasing shipping fuels. I think it was mentioned before that there is a green premium today, but if you bring it down for the consumer, it's actually negligible, and that's actually why this should really work. So that is the consumers actually, for the consumers, it will have relatively little money. Now, we also work on finance for road freight operators. So this is another community of small and medium enterprises that actually should move to electric trucks and cannot easily finance that. So we create finance platforms for doing so. One of the most important use cases for all of this is the so-called port bridge, and the reason for that is that as a shipment. As a port bundle, basically naturally, freight movement in and out of the country. So this is a perfect case for actually a perfect use case for electrifying trucks. And I think we're working, and this is together with Maersk and Procter & Gamble, with the Port of LA on basically putting in charging infrastructure into the port to enable that. And a network of charging stations around them. So to electrify, the port movement in and out of port. And we would be very happy to expand it. We plan to expand it to the port of Rotterdam and the port of Antwerp and other ports. In Europe, because we think this is a significant volume of trucks, actually, of global trucks. It could also help to bring the cost of electric trucks down and increase the uptake of supply, because it's very much supply constraint. And this is actually, in our perspective of end-to-end emissions reduction across all supply chains, across most, a very important point for communities. And with that, I close. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for wonderful opening remarks. We don't have a ton of time left, so I wanted to shift over to kind of a key focus of our work at Pacific Environment, which is ensuring a just transition and an equitable transition in shipping. And a key aspect of that is collaboration in the industry. I'm relatively new to shipping, and I've noticed in my short time in this space that there's so much amazing collaboration that's happening within siloed sectors within the industry. There's great groups like the Richard Mueller Center, like SFC, there's port groups that work together, shippers that work together. How do we bring all of these different efforts together with the community, with labor, with research institutes like the Green Hydrogen Research Institute, and ensure that we're building a just equitable transition for the industry, for the people that work in this industry, and how do we get there? How do we get there together? Start with you.
Well, you mentioned that you're right. I think it's really a coordination. What we do here, we want to reach our goals, and it's very ambitious plan. It's all about creating partnerships. It's having the right policies, it's having the right finance balance into place, and it's having new technologies. So those building blocks are extremely important. We see all over the place, a lot of examples were mentioned already this morning. All over the place, we do see very nice examples, and it's always one red line. It's always between new partnerships. It's always between new corporations. If we talk about clean corridors, we also work with clean corridors. It's between the very specific one is between Antwerp and the Montreal, Canada. But we do also see today, I think it's Agriculture Day. We do see for the end consumer a very big interest in order to understand how can I get my fruit from one side of the world to Europe or vice versa in a sustainable way, because they know they have to bring that to the consumer at the end of the day to survive. So these are all new type of partnerships. I give some other examples. If we it was stated that we will have to go to onshore power by 2030. Yeah, okay. We took also in Antwerp and the evolution took also ambition and action on that. We will be a little bit more stretched. We go for 2028. Yeah. But this is again a cooperation between ourselves, the terminals. It's about an infrastructure program. We will find and how we will sell the electricity on what rates. So these are all new discussions which are happening. We do see that, for instance, today in the port of Antwerp, next quarter, we will accept the first hydrogen worldwide. So it's the first ship being built and which is powered on hydrogen, which is in Belgium already to finalize it, and it will be in operation next quarter. Again, it is a cooperation between our port and EMP Tech. So new types of partnerships are bringing into place. If we talk about multi-fuel, I don't think it's the port ourselves to decide what will be the fuel of the future. I think it's the shipping line or the operation line which will make the decision, but it's up to us to be ready when they require. So by 2025, we have to be multi-fuel ready. So it means that we have to do the investments again to produce on the platform hydrogen that it can be delivered by 2025. Ammonia, with methanol, it all has to be ready by 2025. And this changes completely our DNA. We are not just a point anymore that cargo is talking. No, we really have to talk things end to end and set up complete new partnerships, which makes it very interesting, but it's the only way to go and to reach the goal.
Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in? Go ahead. I'll go ahead and pick up. Go ahead and pick up. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you very much. Indeed, collaboration is the means to accelerate. Collaboration is, of course, a very sympathetic thing to do, but actually, this time around, we have to do it because it's the only way of accelerating the transition for shipping to be in line with the Paris 1.5 degree. So the Maritime development of zero carbon shipping was established as a collaboration platform. That is the purpose. It is to work towards the Paris 1.5 and to use collaboration with the entire ecosystem of public parties and private parties to create the demonstration of how it is possible to do it, and then also to work with global regulation to create a global framework that will drive the entire industry in that direction. And I have to say, what I have seen now over the 2 years of building our portfolio projects, and we have now 60 such projects going, we've seen an enormous interest across the globe to engage in concrete projects with local communities, with shipping lines, with cargo owners, with energy producers to create these demonstration projects. We are now working with a matrix of bulk transportation, tanker transportation, container transportation across methanol, ammonia, methane, and biodiesel. So that whole matrix is now being mobilized, meaning that is basically like 85% of shipping that can be decarbonized by those solutions. And then in addition to that, we're seeing developing countries and developed countries engaging both on a national and very local level to understand the opportunities and the implications for driving zero carbon shipping. And the implications are huge. And we see over and over again how important it is to couple the local policies to the shipping policies. So, for example, in our work with Chile, which we have been doing now with the Chilean ministries for 1 year, where we have developed an in-depth pre-feasibility study, we're really seeing how important it is to work very directly with the local communities, the neighborhoods around the ports, to work with understand the workers' opportunities in this transition where they're shifting away from coal to new energy types. So some jobs will disappear, some new jobs will emerge. We're seeing for example, for Chile, the impact on competitiveness of mining products and agricultural products as something which needs to be understood. We talk here about like 1 cent of additional cost of a shoe, but of course that doesn't apply to a farmer trying to sell his goods on the local market. That's a different matter, So there's a lot of work in actually enabling that whole business system so that the cost is carried all the way to the end consumer, and explaining that how that actually works to the local communities, to get the support for the local communities, to get the acknowledgement that this is actually going to be a just and equitable transition. Those are very, very, very essential elements to this transition. I met with the president of Palau to discuss these issues this year during the Our Ocean conference. And of course, being in the middle of the Pacific and being exposed to that environment, it's a very, very direct opportunity and also challenge. So I really think that these regional developments that we were alluding to, I think they actually get to that regional development to understand both the downsides and also the opportunities, and just to integrate that into our work from the very, very beginning so that becomes a critical part of the narrative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good talk.
Yeah, I can only confirm a few of the
point. So this really is about collaboration across the value chains. You don't get it done if you don't have the consumers, the shipping lines, the cargo owners, various layers of businesses in between the ports, the energy companies, all working together. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's a moonshot. Unfortunately, the time is very compressed. It's in many ways not supply constrained. So actually getting enough hydrogen produced and getting the ships retrofit and build at scale. So from a just transition point of view, it personally creates jobs. It creates many jobs in the energy field, in shipbuilding actually. So it's about business. So I think this is important. This is important to say. And obviously, and the luxury is that the cost to the consumer is relatively negligible. So I think having a transition like that there's an equity element, with the cost of consumers being negligible, is actually a great thing to have. So it's really something that by working together, we should get done, and I think quality is obviously a key parameter. I think port communities, so we work with port communities. I think air pollution is an important one as well. That actually is an important co-benefit of all of this. And a lot of capability building needs to happen. So we as Smart Freight Center, we organize these called smart carrier pools. So we work with actually truck drivers and basically carriers, small carriers, how to actually electrify the fleet at the end of the day. So this has a lot of community angles, and we work with many parties out there. And the last thing, as I would like to emphasize, it's a great program for emerging markets. So this is where the fuels, but the big part of the fuel, the hydrogen is not going to be produced in Europe. It's maybe produced some of that in the US under the IRA. But it's mainly a program for emerging markets, and ports in Africa can become energy hubs, so they produce their own energy and be the important one.
I think the collaboration, and I think research must also be a very important focus. Because what I like about the Namibian context is in collaboration with the German government. We are also looking at more demonstration plans, whereby what is good about that is the research included in that demonstration plan, whereby we have demonstration plans that are talking about research plans that are talking about diesel that are converting, that have been converted, hydrogen trains that have been converted to diesel. And this is really the good thing about this type of project, including students that are coming, to do hands-on, and ships that have been, tugboats that have been converted to hydrogen. So the students are coming to do hands-on. So it is good. This is something that is good for Namibia, and we want it to be good for SADC. And I think so collaboration is good, but research must be made inclusive of that. And I think from that point of view, we can build capacity from the research point of view. That is our mandate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We only have a few minutes left, so to close us out, just some closing remarks from everyone. Just like to get a few takeaway thoughts. Ports are integral in the transition to zero emission shipping. Ports have an enormous amount of authority over governing the ships that come in and dock their ports, whether they need to work with their government partners to develop policy or they have the power to develop that policy on their own. If ports are going to do something today in the immediate term to jumpstart the transition to zero emission shipping, what do they do? What's the best thing that ports can do today?
very concrete. What we're doing is, first of all, we are doing some investments on local level for environmental use around nitrogen to be ready by 2025 to be able to offer any vessel operator to multi-fuel solution. That's first. Second, we are changing our complete infrastructure to be able to be an import for all types of molecules and to bring them to, we are one of the biggest chemical hubs, to bring them online and each of our own chemical stuff, but also to the West European market. That infrastructure program is mapped. It involves terminals, it involves pipelines, it involves cracking installations. So it's two powers. So being creating an import hub by 25, 26, 27, that's one point, and a local production facilitated for a very quick start for those who want by 25.
I think it's pretty obvious that with the needed speed and scale of this transition aligned with the Paris 1.5, everybody needs to start preparing. And I think what we just heard from Tom, it's exactly the kind of strategic planning that needs to take place. So the permitting processes can be very long for some of the things, especially with ports, city environments. So I would really recommend everyone just get going on the planning, because time is maybe our worst enemy here. It could take a long time to get to the scale needed. So get going on planning.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I cannot answer your report question, but maybe as a few remarks from the regulator's perspective, or I can add also to your last question. As I said, ETS, all you can do is usually lead by example. We always used to focus on to decarbonize our own sectors, our own industry with ETS. But of course, we also see that we want to show that emissions management is going to be feasible. And we hope that this example helps also others maybe to go into pricing activities. And of course, also gives incentives to create alliances from the technical side. Of course, there will have to be alternatives for shipping motors and alternative fuels. There will have to be alliances to get the best method in place. We can incentivize this a bit by the European emissions trading system. There will be an innovation part, but also the shipping sector will have access to projects. And so we hope that by that there is also an opportunity to develop promising initiatives. And once again, let me highlight that we, by limiting our scope of international routes to 50%, we of course also were open to give others a fair opportunity, other states to regulate their part of the international routes. And we feel that some kind of regulation will be necessary, otherwise we don't have support the decarbonization of the sector. Thank you.
Yeah, from the Namibian point of view, for us, we are very happy that for our project that is being raised by CFDJ for decarbonizing Southern Africa, the test of time, which is raised by CFDJ to compare platforms and ships to work with the various activities to be based on what is done. So it's one of the projects that we are really looking forward to implementing to decarbonizing Africa. So we are looking forward to that work that is being made.
I would only, I think all of the good things have been said. I would only like to add that the transition needs to be investable. A lot of finance is going to be needed. So ship owners need to invest into basically either retrofit or new ships which are zero carbon. That may actually cost more. There needs to be a lot of hydrogen plants, investment into hydrogen facilities. And that is, unless there is a level playing field policy, there's always a good reason not to do it. Yeah, so otherwise you're stuck in the chicken and egg situation. So that's why policy is so super important. It would be great if it was global, but we all know how difficult that is. But I think CLE explained that actually regional policies can actually get a long way on this. So this is the point we need to teach. So this is a moonshot, and investability is key. Routing the capital to the sector to make the whole thing work is actually something which needs to be at the essence of the design of the transition.
Thank you all. I'm going to ask the panelists to stay for one quick picture. I know we'll have to talk. And then please join us for coffee and tea until 1:30. So thank you all for our panelists. Thank you all.